Good morning. This is the Abundance Book Club live. This month we are reading The Audacity to Be Queen. Today we are talking about putting yourself on the back burner. Are you doing that? Some really important things to be aware of if you are. And we'll also be talking about masculine and feminine. There's a lot of conversations around the masculine and feminine happening these days. And I think it is so important. I didn't think so when I first started hearing about it, but now as I've really discovered it, I believe that it is. And we'll talk a little bit about why and what it means and all of those fun things. So Terry, good morning. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yes.
And I love this book. I love this book.
Yeah.
Audacious.
Yeah, and it's so fun to have, as we connect with people and as we grow with people and as we learn with and from people, the women in our lives, it is beautiful to see this deeply authentic space that is really coming forward, that I'm experiencing women becoming, myself becoming. And it is beautiful because it holds such a space for us all to be human, to be in the growing spaces and not to ever try to have arrived or have it all figured out or be perfect, to have our emotions. What was that?
And the audacity to be queen.
And the audacity to hold a beautiful, powerful space while being imperfect, right?
Exactly. There's so much power in the ability to hold the space as queen, if you will, and be imperfect and feel respected and feel loved and held, and to hold the space as queen, as our own queen. Yeah. It's such a balance of grace and power and intelligence and how we show up. Yeah. And how we give permission to, and we are permission to be all of those things imperfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the permission and holding the space for others, the other beautiful, powerful women around us to be and do the same.
Yes.
Yeah, it's so fun. So let's jump into these topics. If you are joining us for the first time, you have not subscribed yet, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you join us on a regular basis, and that is how you will get notified. The topic.
Yes, please join us. So much fun.
So much fun. And I'll also put in the comments the link to the Facebook group, so you can join us there too, because we do other fun things as well. Connections, networking, or conversations growing together, all sorts of fun stuff.
When I pull out the invite for my friends, it's joining a group of powerful, spiritual, beautiful, forward-moving women. Mm-hmm. So if that's where you want to, abundant women, if that's where you want to play, come join us.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, this topic, when we put ourselves on the back burner, everyone suffers. Everyone suffers. So, we hear quite often the saying, put your own mask on. When you're on the airplane, put your own mask on first. It's so much easier to say than it is to do. I think we're all in the same space where we know it, and then we are even choosing powerfully in many ways to put our own mask on first. But there are still times where we catch ourselves taking care of everything else first before we care for ourselves and set ourselves up. And what comes up for me is very similar to some of the things that we talk about in your health coaching and your nutrition coaching. And that is, how are we setting ourselves up for success? Because if we have the intention to take care of ourselves and not put ourselves on the back burner, but all of a sudden we're in life, we're in the situation, and we aren't set up for success, we don't have the tools. Example, I gone on vacation and just went to the restaurant that everybody else was at, and then nothing really fit into what I needed and what my body needed to stay healthy and to feel vibrant and feel amazing. So one of the things that you coached me on was prep your food, take your, all the things, right? So how are we getting into spaces that we think we are not putting ourselves last. We think we are prioritizing our energy and all the things that we need to show up big, to make a difference, to serve our families at our highest level, whatever it is that we do in the world. And then in those moments, we go, oh, I don't have what I need.
Yeah. Such a great question, such a great topic. I believe that we are conditioned by generations of how women serve and are unfortunately subservient. And it is a retraining of our culture, so to speak. I think our brains are wired to do and be a certain way. And as we grow, those wirings typically don't work for us as adults. So when we find ourselves in situations that don't serve our highest and best, we take note, it doesn't work for us, we ask for support, and we rewire it. And every time you interrupt that old rewired or that old pattern, that old wiring in your brain, so to speak, it's a little bit of science. This is actually scientific, which I love. But every time we interrupt the wiring in our brain, the old neural pathway, we create a new rewiring. And it just takes practice. And finding ourselves on the back burner, if there's an awareness of it, that's really powerful. Only in awareness can we shift and interrupt and move it into a place where we can move ourselves to the front burner. And it's a whole mindset that we get to shift on understanding that it's not self-serving, it is not selfish, it is not conceited is the old word, to put ourselves first. If we aren't strong and stable and grounded and centered, first of all, what are we showing our children? What are we modeling to our children? That we're all over the place. If we aren't those things, we can't be our highest and best to serve our family, so to speak. And I coach this all the time. Like you said, when the plane's going down, when the plane's in trouble, the oxygen mask comes down, they tell parents to put it on first. That's the perfect analogy, because you can't save anybody else when you're dying.
Well, and what comes up for me is that if we are focused on what our needs are, whether it is being our own happiness, whether it's our own happiness, whether it's our own, physical needs, whatever it is, right? If we are focused on that first, we are modeling for others how to do that. And if everyone has themselves taken care of, then when we reach out and support each other, we're supporting in such an empowered place, because we're not saying, oh, you are not capable. We're just saying, oh, I love you so much. Let me be here for you and let me be an additional support for you, and vice versa, receiving that. So the network, the web of what we're creating with our tribe, with our family, with everyone around us has such solid ground. And
Yeah.
so when we are coming from that place, we're creating not only for ourselves that foundation, but we're supporting others and creating it as well. And then, of course, we talk about too, when we're at our highest and best, then we can give at our highest and best. So for those of us that do love serving and really do love making a difference, that's wonderful. Now we have all of the energy to be able to do that in a way that is so impactful and loving.
Yeah, that reminds me of, if you aren't convinced yet, those that are watching, if you're not convinced yet, it reminds me of the times where if you are serving and giving your children and taking care of your family and you have not eaten, what happens to your blood sugar? It drops. And then what happens? We get hangry, we get cranky, and then we're showing up in contribution halfway and cranky, and we aren't giving them the best. And they don't know that. They don't know what's going on inside of us. All they know is that mommy's landing cranky. Why is she yelling? Why is she got this awful look on her face? So it's truly, truly valuable to know that you get to take care of yourself first. No back burners.
Yeah, and then the other piece of setting ourselves up for success, right? Like you in your coaching, we've been talking about the pause. We love the pause because it is in the pause that we learn a lot. We notice
Oh
a
boy.
lot. So in
Yeah.
those moments where we go, oh, wow, I didn't set myself up for success here.
Mhm.
Oh, you know, what's in that, first of all, right? Like, what do I want to discover from that? What is this teaching me? And then secondly, what am I choosing going forward so
Right.
that I am set up for success the next time?
Absolutely. There's so much power in the pause. And those of us that are high achievers, type A, go, go, go feels really, really good. Working under pressure feels good. We get a lot accomplished. And the trail of tears behind us sometimes shows up. So the power, being aware of what you're doing, and the power of the pause, and being able to choose a different way that may seem uncomfortable and clunky and messy. That's okay, because if it is uncomfortable, that means you're learning something new. So we like to feel that and to embrace that. So the power of the pause, and then move forward.
Yeah.
If you know better,
I
do.
love that you said we like to feel that. We like to feel uncomfortable. So the truth is we don't really love it, and we know the value of it. And when we feel it, we're like, oh, okay, this is good. I'm growing.
Yeah,
We're
I totally reframe the uncomfortable, because I will avoid it up
yeah,
until now. In the
yeah,
past, avoided it at all cost.
yeah,
So now it's just like this little notification. It being uncomfortable. It's like, it's okay,
yeah.
because I'm doing something different. I'm doing something new, and it doesn't have to be perfect, just progress. So please keep that in mind. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, the masculine and the feminine, masculine and feminine. So when I first heard this, I really didn't think too much about it, but as I've discovered what it means for me, it is the driver energy, the way of showing up, the get stuff done, make stuff happen, move stuff forward. That can bulldoze, steamroll, speaking of Trail of Tears, right? Leave people, emotional when we show up just in masculine. And of course, we have the feminine where we're loving and we're soft and we're gentle and we are maybe quiet. And, the pause is part of that feminine, right? So there is the feminine also that shows up as the doormat, the person who is subservient and is on the back burner, and all of the things that don't serve us. So the book talks quite a bit about balancing the masculine and feminine. I know there's a lot of people who are bringing this forward in such powerful ways. For me, it was a exercise. It was a practice. We talk about practicing so much. It was
Mhm.
absolutely a practice of showing up in my strength and in my moving things forward and getting things done, and even communication, right? Communicating in a way that is, hey, let's move this forward without um, I'll say without the parts that don't serve, but bringing in the feminine, like really being aware of the space, the people, the love that I have for everyone when I'm communicating. And still there's a practice, right? Because there's still times that buttons get pushed and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
breathe. What's really true here? How do I get to handle this? And so it is a practice of the masculine and feminine. I think it's such an important conversation.
It is incredible. This is such a loaded conversation. It's got so many yummy goody things in it. I believe that a lot of high achieving women function from the masculine. I know that I was one of them, and I got a lot accomplished. And growing up, I learned, and I'm sure that a lot in our generation learned, that being quiet was not powerful. We saw a lot of women modeling being quiet and getting run over, so to speak, emotionally. So I think, at least I was trained that to be accomplished, to get somewhere, I had to step into the masculine energy. And I was very successful, have been. And even in my professional athletic career, it was bodybuilding. And so that's quite masculine. What I learned though, and what I have learned, and I feel so grateful and blessed to have learned this, that being able to be a woman and standing in your quiet strength, it does come from the inside out. So we get to learn as women that we do get to have the audacity to be a queen. It's true. And women are also taught that, and I do believe the conversation's so shifted right now that we can be queen and it be okay. But in the past, and I believe again that our generation and all the conversations now are just mindset shifting, and it's just powerful. The pebble that we're throwing into the pond and the ripple effect of it's okay to be powerful. It's okay to be a woman and strong and stand in your power. We do have the audacity.
We do. Yeah, I actually was raised completely the opposite. Being loud, taking up space, all of those things were not okay. And so I actually came from the other end of the spectrum to find my balance. But what comes up for me in this conversation, and is so important to me that we talk about, is that in our queenhood, in our standing in our masculine and our feminine, I see so much happening in the world where it's like women are, we've been held down for years. We need to be, there is a movement that is coming, in my opinion, from victim. Yes, we get to take a stand for ourselves. Yes, we get to speak up, all of the things, but doing it in a way that is grace and power mixed is queenly. Doing it in a way that we're a victim, everybody else is wrong. There's no power in that. It feels powerful. It feels like, we're powerful. Let's push this forward. It's not. It is not where true power comes from, because true power is mixed with grace and beauty. And for the men that have been part of our lives, that have been part of creating, as we've become who we are, the men in our lives that have stood for us, the men in our lives who have or have not stood for us and have been a beautiful example of what doesn't work and what we're not willing to put up with, whatever it is, my experience is that there's a lot of almost like trying to hold someone down to be able to stand taller. It's kind of like, when you're a kid, and I know I had the experience myself of this happening to me and me doing this, where, someone would cut someone down so they could feel cooler, right? And it's almost like that's what's happening in our culture. Not everywhere, but there is a thread of that happening where it's almost like women are trying to hold men down or make men wrong just for being men, so that they can feel like they have, received more or something. And I just am such a stand for that. A queen, as queens, the collective of us as women, we are balanced out by the king. And the king also shows up in grace and strength. And if we want that in them, maybe there's men in our lives that aren't showing up in that way, but if we want that in them, we have to hold that space for them and speak into that.
Yeah. And not just men, Tabitha, everyone. I think a queen stands in grace and power, holding everyone high. And we have our personal boundaries that we get to hold ourselves to, the standards that we get to hold ourselves to. And that is not projected onto others. We get to choose who we allow in. And let me say that more specifically. If someone is choosing to not hold themselves at a high standard and behave in a way that isn't supportive of them even, we get to choose out of that. So as a queen, standing in our power gracefully, holding everybody high, and giving them the opportunity to shine. And I wanted to speak into, you said your childhood was, you were held down and you weren't allowed to be loud. I wasn't either. I observed as a child to be quiet, not heard, don't shine. And I grew into understanding that the only way to be heard is to be pull forward the masculine. So the pendulum has swung for me as well. I clearly wasn't.
Yeah, and I think that is very common, right? With the pendulum
Mhm.
swing, experiencing ourselves as, a doormat, or then experiencing ourselves as like bulldozing. I think that is normal as we're finding our balance and as we're finding our, center, and, we get to have grace with ourselves as we
Mhm.
navigate all of those things.
Yeah, and I wanted to presence that so that everyone knows that the pendulum swing back and forth is pretty normal.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So good. Well, we get to let YouTube go for today. Thank you everyone for being with us. Come play with us. We'll have the link in the comments below, and have a great Wednesday.